So, common question about Facebook ads for authors is what is a good cost per click rate? And your cost per click is going to depend on two major things. It's going to depend on your result rate, how many people are clicking on your ads, and it's going to depend on how expensive of an audience you're targeting. And so, if you see a cost per result, so that's for a traffic ad, these are my cost per clicks. So you might see here I'm getting 9-cent clicks, which is great. If you go down to like late last year, here's like 19-cent clicks. Here's a 91-cent click. That was a real expensive ad that I didn't keep running for very long. It was not uncommon for me to be getting like 35-cent clicks, 27-cent clicks. In general, they're cheaper right now. One of the things, though, that you'll assume is that the cost per click is directly proportionate to how good of an ad you've created. That the better ad you make, the cheaper cost per click you'll get. But that's only half of the equation. So you want to go here into columns and you want to make sure that you're looking at your result rate, which for a traffic ad is going to be the same as your click-through rate, as well as your cost per result, which is going to be your cost per click. But there's one other metric that you for sure want to add. So we're going to go here into columns and go to customize columns. And the one that you for sure want to have is going to tell you how expensive your audience is. So it's a little hard to find, so I just search for impression and I make sure that my cost per 1,000 impressions is checked here as one of the columns that I want to see, and I click apply. And so if you have an ad with a high result rate, so lots of people are clicking, you're going to for sure see a lower cost per click. But the other metric that is just as important is how much you're paying per 1,000 impression. And this tells you how expensive or cheap of an audience you're targeting. So you can see I have some audiences that are just $5 per per 1,000 impression, all the way up to like $22 per 1,000 impression. In general, the smaller audiences are going to cost you more per impression. Another thing to keep in mind is if you're using similar targets to what tons of people are using, that's also going to make an impact. So like if you're targeting Dan Brown type author and thousands of other authors are also targeting him, he's going to be more expensive and that audience will be more expensive. So right now you can see the cost per 1,000 impressions is well under $10 for almost all of my audiences. This is not typically true. Like I said, like when we were getting toward the end of 2019, it was real common to have in the teens and low 20s. So that's one reason why clicks are so cheap right now. So when you're looking at your ad, what you want to make sure of is that you're not just looking at cost per click. You want to look at your result rate, and you also want to look at how expensive your specific audience is. So for example, if you've got an ad where the click-through rate, maybe it's low, maybe it's just like in the low 3% or lower, but your audience is cheap enough. Like here, I was getting 11-cent clicks. I'm totally happy with 11-cent clicks, even though the result rate isn't super high. Similarly, you might have an ad with a really high result rate, but the audience is an expensive audience. And you might, if you're just looking at cost per click, think that it's a bad ad when the ad's doing great. It's just that you're targeting an expensive audience. And then at that point, you could maybe consider tweaking your audience, or maybe you just decide that with the result rate that high, it's going to be worth it, even if the cost per click is a little higher. So those are the three metrics that you want to keep an eye on in order to pay attention to your cost per click. You want to look at your result rate, your cost per click, and then the cost for reaching or for getting 1,000 impressions.